thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm Casey. Do you want to just quickly go down the line?
Sure. I'm Rachel. I write a newsletter called Link in Bio.
I'm Gabby. I'm a lead social influencer at Graza.
And I'm Kim. I work for Newly, overseeing marketing.
So let's kick it off with a question for everyone. Virality means many things to many people. I guess in each of your organizations or in your world, what does it mean to each of you? Do you want to start, Rachel?
Sure. So, I mean, I think it's a very overused word, but I sort of define it by a piece of content that gets a lot of views, reach, engagement in a very condensed amount of time, and then also has some sort of cultural impact. And so maybe it's a TikTok that went viral, but people on Twitter are talking about it, or you're sending it to your group chat being like, did you see this? And yeah, I think that's...
Yeah, no, that's great. I agree that it's certainly overused, used a lot. I think, at its most basic definition, it's a piece of content that got shared again and again and again. I think for us, virality is not a strategy in itself. We focus more on shareability. That's actually a KPI that we track, is making sure that we're leaving space in our content calendar for content that can be shared. And I think that's what leads to virality when that's done well. And so that's kind of how we look at it. Virality is a result of that and optimizing for that in our strategy.
Yeah, I just add that, I think from a brand perspective, virality is the moment where, honestly, you lose control. You no longer, as a brand, have control over your own brand, your narrative. It kind of gets handed over to your customer, and you have to have a little bit of trust. It can be a little scary, but it can also be really great.
Building off of that, you had a moment in late 2024 where a Newly customer sat in something very unpleasant on the subway in a pair of Newly jeans. You guys reacted brilliantly. Tell me a little bit about that, how you decided to react in the way that you did, what the internal HQ was doing when all of that went down.
Well, I guess I should take it from, just so I have an understanding, how many people have heard of Newly? Okay, so not everyone. So it's a subscription rental company. It's part of the Urban Outfitters family of brands. So Urban Outfitters, Free People, Anthropologie, Newly's the newest brand. So just a little context. As these things happen, it was a Saturday night. I was about to go to a holiday party, and I got a Slack message from a colleague saying, this is starting to blow up. And you're just like, I have to click this, but I do not want to. So basically, there was this meme format that was very popular at the time on TikTok. It was a fabulous Muppet and kind of set to the tune of like a prayer, a relaying of the most embarrassing story of your life. It was the meme. This particular one was told in great detail, with great writing, in a very humorous way. And the story was a woman who was riding the subway in New York and sat in a pile of human shit. Now, where does Newly come in? She was wearing Newly jeans. So we hadn't actually done anything wrong, but we were a main character in the story. Even more so because we were a new brand and a lot of people didn't know who we were. So the comment section is blowing up, tagging Newly, saying, well, first of all, being like, people rent jeans. So it was great brand awareness, but a lot of people, are those jeans still in your circulation? What is happening? How could people rent these? So the slacking begins, and I'm told my husband to go to the party without me because I'll meet you there. And we were trying to figure out what to do, but the reality, if any of you in the room oversee social media, sometimes it's hard to do something immediately, and you shouldn't always. Sometimes you need to let something breathe. So that's what we did. We said, let's check back in the morning, see where this is going. I went to the party in the morning. It hadn't gone away. But we still decided to let it breathe a little. Let's wait until Monday when we're all together in the office. There's a lot that can happen over the internet. In some cases, there is some good creativity that can happen when people get together in a room. And the creative team reports into me, and they oversee the social content. And they were, well, we have a big brand campaign coming up. We're really busy. And I was like, this is the new brand campaign. Let's focus on this. It's really important. And they did, and they kind of killed it with the response. They took the same meme format, and they turned it around from the perspective of the social media manager. The social media manager who had seen this meme and had to course correct. And what we tried to do is get across the key message that was important for people to hear. The jeans were not in circulation. We have stringent cleaning and inspection protocols. Customer service has been in touch with this customer and reminded them that if this happens again, you probably should just reach out to us, and we don't want your jeans back. So all of these things, we hit these key points, and the response itself went viral, which was really incredible. Honestly, we could see that it was one of the peak moments for Nuuly brand awareness throughout our history.
And it translated to signups, I have to imagine.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Shitgate was written in, and how did you hear about us?
Gabby, you guys had a similar viral moment with the exact same meme format, actually. Tell me a little bit about how you guys engaged with this meme that wasn't actually involving you, but you made it your own.
Yeah. So different than Nuuly, we weren't directly mentioned. Graza was not said in this story that Megan posted, but olive oil was. And this story is crazy. It's harder to summarize. It is about somebody who did an olive oil hair mask and put so much olive oil in their hair and then wrapped it in saran wrap and then proceeded to slip on the olive oil that was on the floor from putting said olive oil hair mask in. And it ensued in this crazy chain of events. She slipped on it. She passed out, I think. And it culminated in her going to take a shower in the morning to wash the olive oil out of her hair, and the water line had stopped working, and so she had to go to school with this olive oil in her hair. And so I think for us, it was more so, this is any olive oil brand can really jump into this. So it was a sprint. It was, we have to be kind of first to get to this. This happened, I think late Friday or early Saturday. And we were slacking all weekend about, what we do. We went in early Monday morning. We'd already canceled the whole day, all of our meetings. We sat in a brainstorm first thing in the morning, and we were all throwing out ideas. I think the thing that we realized is first and foremost, we have to get Graza into her hand. So we reached out to her. We found out she was in New York, which was amazing because our office is in New York. So we were like, okay, great. Let's deliver olive oil to her today. But we didn't just stop there. We also created a custom Graza label on the bottle. We named it Slip and Sizzle, and it's our olive oil girl that you see on all of our bottles, but she has a saran wrapped head with the olive oil mask. And yeah, she's slipping on the olive oil. And we had that printed at a local printer. We ran to get it. We delivered it to her door in the olive oil suits, and we documented that whole process and posted that on social. And then we also worked with her a few days later to redo her hair mask with Graza olive oil, this time with a much happier ending. And it was great. People were like, wow, your hair is actually really shiny. And if you're putting this in your hair, this must be great olive oil. So it worked out really, really well for us. I think people really appreciated the speed also, which is something is that it's important for us, but people also in comments will be like, this was so fast. How did you do this so fast? And so, yeah, it was great. But I think that what allowed that to happen was that we have a structure where I think our leadership team understands the importance of us acting on these very quickly. They don't make us go through a very lengthy review process. I think there's a lot of trust in what we do and us saying, hey, we have to just run with this. which is how these moments happen. I think you have to have that in place. Yeah, but it was very fun.
I'm curious, have any of those moments where you've sort of run with something because the management kind of entrusts you,
Yeah.
has it ever flopped?
Flopped as in
Well, I
it
mean,
doesn't perform?
I guess that's a question. Is it a flop if it doesn't perform, but you're still experimenting?
No. I mean, I think going for it is a success, and that's how you learn. But I know. I think it's always, there's always a learning that comes out of it, and so in that case, it's never a failure. I think we can always like grow from it. But yeah, great question.
And another takeaway would be to always have life-size Graza olive oil bottles laying around the office,
Of course.
or whatever your office.
Right. Our olive oil costumes. That's helpful as well.
Rachel, you've studied hundreds, if not thousands, of brand social strategies through your newsletter. When a brand goes viral, what separates it from one that really just excels and is able to build on that moment versus one that fumbles?
I feel like this conversation, like having some context just around the way that algorithms have sort of changed this, and I've worked in social for 13 years, and you know, as a social manager, if somebody came up to you and was like, we're blowing up right now, it used to be like, well, how many followers do they have? And how much influence do they have? And that just does not matter anymore in these sort of like supercharged, like interest-based algorithms. If it is going viral, they might have 3,000 followers, but it's still getting millions of views. And so as a brand, you can't care about how many followers that person has. Everyone is an influencer today. And so I think that's important to remember. And also, I think that a lot of brands might view these moments as more of like an inconvenience than an opportunity. And I think it would be easy for you to say, we have this campaign going on, like, let's just leave a cute reply and move on. I interviewed the social person at Topgolf earlier, and there was this amazing thing where a like net fell in Auburn Hills, Michigan. It was like somebody documented it, and somebody commented named Logan being like, my work party's here next week, like it better be back up. And it got 100,000 likes, and that was an opportunity where Topgolf could just be like, yeah, like I'll like it and move on, or you can be like, this is our moment. And they really ran with it. They threw Logan the best work party ever, and I'm sure that that performed better than anything that they had planned. And so I think that a lot of brands sometimes would just sort of like take it to A when you should take it to Z. These are moments that your audience is rooting for you, right? They're like, that was so fast, or like, damn, Newly, like I didn't know that you like could react like that. And so I also talk a lot about how consumers have never been like more aware about how marketing works right now, and they want your brand to succeed. They want you to like come back with that really perfect response. And so I think that it's really important, especially for leadership, to understand that and be like, yeah, let's get in the war room and like figure this out right now, because this is a big moment for us that we can't manufacture ourselves.
It shows that the brands get it. Gabby, you guys launched with a massive influencer seeding program, the likes of which I don't know that I've ever seen, and I know lots of brands have tried to follow suit. I'm curious, because it was among the first to do it at that scale, what gave you guys the confidence to go forth and launch that way?
Yeah. I think two things, really. I think the first thing, and this is maybe kind of an annoying answer, but I think there's a deep belief in the product that starts all the way at the top. We care, and we put so much effort into making the product very, very good. And so I think that takes the pressure off the marketing team, because our job is to just get it into people's hands. We don't have to, try to do so much selling. We really believe that if people would just try it, they'll love it, and it'll eventually, hopefully, earn a space on their counter. And so I think that's the first thing. But the second thing is that Graza has always known who it is and what problem it solves and who it's for since it was founded, which I think is really unique. It's olive oil for anyone who cooks, and that is very broad. But I think that also knowing that, and even me coming into this role when I did 2 years ago, it really gave me permission to cast a very wide net, because I know what success looks like. It looks like this olive oil being in everybody's hands, not just the chefs, but also home cooks and your favorite comedian on TikTok and the fashion influencer that you follow. We really want it to be everywhere. And I think when that is so clear, and I think, social teams should advocate for this too, is like, you should know who you're talking to. And that should be set for you so that you can step into the role confidently, like what you're saying. And I think that was very clear from the beginning, and it allowed us then and even now to take big swings like this and to know, what success really looked like in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kim, similarly, the Club Newly program that you guys have, you work with influencers with followings as small as 2,000. I'm curious how you guys operationalize that. And like, what's the managing like? What's the strategy like? It's all over my feed, so it's working.
The truth is that it's somewhat manual, and it means investment in a team and believing in creators and influencers as a key part of your marketing strategy, which we have done since day one. I think that the reason why we've gravitated to more towards, I guess, smaller scale influencers and creators, I think some of it is kind of the common known reason, which is that these people have real, true relationships with their community. They also are they use Newly. That's really important to us, that they're people that actually find utility in our brand and love our brand. So there's a natural advocacy. But I'd say even beyond that, something that's maybe a little bit more unique to our business is that we have 500 brands and 28,000 styles. We were really conscious when we were building our business that actually at first we thought maybe we should launch a rental business under the Anthropologie brand. And then we thought, wait, someone that aggregates brands is going to win if there is winning in rental versus a single brand player. So we decided to be a multi-brand platform. But with that comes, we have to have a brand identity. Curation's important, but also we need to serve a broad audience. And you know what is the best channel for that? It's influencer. So we can work with creators who are pregnant and are using us for maternity, or college students using us for spring break or rush. Or, the cool edgy girl or the romantic girl. Like, we really can hit a very broad audience and show what Newly has to offer. So it's been wonderful for us.
Yeah, and with the micro trends that we see churn through TikTok, I'm sure that people are turning to Newly instead of going to the store to buy entirely new outfits. And
definitely, we are so lucky that we have the ability to kind of, you name the trend, and we can spin up a curation very quickly and hit all of those trends.
Yeah. Rachel, you've written that follower growth is down, but non-follower views are up. What does this shift mean for how brands are building an audience in 2026?
I feel like this is the question of the moment. I think, a lot of brands right now are seeing that their follower growth has slowed, while the overall trend is that, views are up, non-follower views are up. And I think, when I first started in social, you grew followers, those people saw your content, you were creating content for them, they were already bought into your brand, and you could sort of build inside jokes and sort of be able to tell your brand story on social. And now every brand needs to be thinking about what would make somebody who doesn't follow us care about this piece of content, because that is the signal that's going to send it out even further into the algorithm. And so I think that it's a very weird switch for a lot of brands. I think a brand that does it very well, that I've talked to a few times, is Figs. They're the scrubs company, and if you look at their social, you probably won't hear much about the quality of the fabric necessarily, or how they're thinking about new styles. Their social is a fan page for healthcare workers. If you work in healthcare, you want to follow their page. They understand how to speak your language. Their campaigns are, on a broader level advocating for healthcare workers. And that's the sort of way that they find people to sort of come in. And so, I think that's a big switch from the way that a lot of brands have traditionally thought about what to use social for. But if you work in social, you probably understand, our followers don't see our content anymore. And it's very hard to break through the 1,000 likes into the 30,000 likes that you'll see some brands getting. And I think that it requires sort of a mindset shift of what the point of social is. And also, like influencer can be a much more targeted approach. And so you can use your main page for that sort of top of funnel, and then be able to use influencer as more of like bottom funnel, like use case examples, and thinking about social not as it's supposed to do this one thing, and how can different surfaces of social do different things.
So no longer should your strategy revolve around your existing followers.
Of course, it's not like ignore you guys, like we don't like you. I just think you have to put every piece of content through the lens of why would somebody who doesn't already follow us care about that? And sometimes that's just like taking a little bit further of a step back of like, instead of talking about something that's specific to our brand, maybe it's an ingredient that our brand has, but is also an ingredient that lots of people love. And it's a joke about pickles instead of like the brand name. And it can be as simple as that, I think, to encourage shares.
So I think one thing that a lot of brands are constantly trying to figure out is how do they show up on the feed? What is their brand voice? What is their personality? You guys have very distinct personalities. How did you kind of arrive to what each of you is, and how do you kind of carry that through? And also, at what point do you say this maybe isn't Graza, it isn't Newly, but we're going to try it anyway?
Yeah, I can start there. I think for us, it's for me, it's been really fun because Graza tends to lean very chaotic, which I think that social actually kind of rewards right now, which is like the chaos and the transparency and just being so open with your followers and everybody that's seeing your content. Our core mission is to make an industry that felt very stuffy and very unapproachable feel approachable. And I think, you know, we take our product very seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously. And so everything that we do on social ladders up to that mission is approachability. And so I think a good example is we just launched mayo. It's very good if you haven't tried it. Available at Whole Foods. But yeah, it's great. And we're shipping it out to people during a very cold time. And we were noticing that when we were shipping it to places where it was freezing, there was maybe some separation. So we had to film a more informational content piece about the separation. And I think even something like that, we're thinking of, okay, how do we make this? This needs to be in our voice, and it needs to feel not just like any video from any brand. So we had our co-founder write a little blurb, a script that he wanted to say. We're just going to film him. And at the end of it, he said, you know, this mayo is so good, we really just want it to knock your socks off. And so we're reading the script and we're like, he should be not wearing socks in this video. He should be in the kitchen without socks on, just barefoot. And so he says that, and we like pan down to his feet and he's not wearing socks. And it's a great example, I think, of just like everything can feel, you know, like the brand. And when you know your voice, it makes it easy to run everything, kind of like Rachel was saying, through that funnel of like, you know, how do we make this feel like us? And so I think that also, to the other side of it, it makes it easy to know what doesn't feel like you, and what things you maybe just don't need to play into because it doesn't make sense. So yeah, I think having a clear understanding of it.
I'd say that some of the Newly team members are definitely jealous of how chaotic Graza gets to be on social.
Fun.
Super fun. And I think when we launched, we knew that fun was going to be a big element of the brand. And actually our mission is Newly makes getting dressed fun. But we can't lean overly chaotic because we also are this service that is truly about reliability. So we have to consider that as a brand as well. So, but wit has been a very important element of our voice from day one. And, you know, what we learned is you can't fake wit. You actually just need to hire really funny, truly funny people. There's no other way. I do think something, though, that we've learned as we've been around 6 years now, is that what started with, you know, we just knew the brand so well, and we had the people that knew it, and you knew what was Newly and what wasn't Newly. Now we're a little bigger, and we did need to kind of think it through. What is the Nuuly brand? We need it to document, like, what are some of those words, and really share it with the team. So sometimes you grow up and you realize that, no, we can't just rely on these 3 people who have like a gut instinct for the brand. Brand books matter sometimes. So we did, I guess, get a little bit more formal recently.
I like that both of you basically say hire funny people. That's the takeaway. And something, there's so much fear around AI and jobs, and AI simply can't replace the funny people. Rachel, you've said that brands that do, quote, messaging karaoke, singing along to trends without their own voice, get into the most trouble. How do you develop a voice that's distinctive enough to be recognized, but flexible enough to jump on these moments?
I think that, when we're specifically talking about this accidental virality, it is ultimately a conversation. And so when somebody is, talking about your brand, you do need to converse with them in a way that makes sense with the way they approach you, just like you use the meme format back, which like maybe Nuuly wouldn't have ever used that meme format, right? But in that moment, it felt like I need to match their energy back. And so I do think that's really important to think about, of it can still be how your brand shows up, but you can flex into the conversation just like we do every day as humans, right? Of like, okay, they're showing up bubbly, like I'll be more bubbly than I usually am. I think another brand, I feel like there's a lot of accidental virality happening like right now. One that's on my radar is PetSmart. And there's this guy who's making these like metal songs about, is it PetSmart or is it PetSmart? And they're these like they're getting millions of views. And if I'm on the marketing team at PetSmart, I'm like, hell yeah, like there's nothing wrong, like there's no emergency here, but it's really funny. And so the way that they responded was a little bit more like in their usual voice, I would say. He's coming at them like heavy metal, and they're responding in like, here are 3 things to like know about walking your dog energy, which is like great for day to day. But I think you literally had their audience being like, come on, do a metal song back to him. Like, you guys are a brand. I think that people think of brands like, you have the resources, you have the like, this is your moment. And I think it's an important thing when you're in that brainstorm and everything's happening, of like, if they had just taken a step back and said, what is the coolest thing we could do, and not like, how would we usually respond, I think that might have come to a different sort of conclusion. So I think it really is about like that conversation, matching the energy of how that person approached you.
I think also something that when that in that example, PetSmart, it was kind of like a good thing, right? It was exciting, but I think when there's a viral moment where maybe it could lean a little negative for the brand, I do think that just simply humanizing it in some way matters quite a bit. Like, we are all humans that work for companies that are the people that make the brands. And I think something that worked about our response was that it was from the social media manager's perspective. And then all the comments from brands were those brands' social media managers feeling seen in the meme. So I do, and even beyond that, I think when we have issues, just reminding people that we're human, it goes a long way.
You had one other really good example of a brand that didn't engage in the last week.
What was it?
There's so many every week, I guess.
David Protein just did a response that maybe is like kind of the opposite of what you're saying, and it's people are liking it. I don't know. I think they're in a lawsuit right now. And instead of sort of taking a serious approach to that, they made a like Mean Girls spoof about not all rumors are true. It was a little bit more of like a snark back, and I was interested to see that people responded well to it. So keep an eye on that. There's still a lawsuit, so.
Gabby, your packaging was basically designed to perform on social media with the squeeze bottle, the colorful labels, the name Sizzle, Drizzle, and then you can riff on that for different social media moments. I'm curious, how much did your team think about the content of it all while designing that putting it together?
Yeah, I didn't design the bottle, but I can speak to it. I know that it was not created with the intention to perform on social. It was created to stand out on a shelf on amongst all of the other bottles that we were sitting next to. And so I think, though, what was important is that it is part of what makes Graza distinctly Graza, and so it's part of our social strategy and how we talk about the brand. I think when people think of Graza, they think about the squeeze bottle, and that's largely because of how we've talked about it on social. We really lean into it, and our customers and our followers really care about that, and so we talk about it a lot. When we switched over to glass, we actually posted a very self-aware video of us. I think it was to the tune of, how we're acting in the office now that we don't have to respond to the squeeze bottle plastic comments, and it's like this slow motion video of like people are dancing, somebody's like popping champagne, somebody's like kissing the glass bottle, and it speaking of virality, that's one of the videos that ended up going viral. It was very self-aware, and I think also just aware in that like we know what you guys say and what we're paying attention to everything that you're commenting. So I think to answer your question, it wasn't designed for social, but it is in a very important part of our social strategy is the packaging.
Kim, similarly, the packaging from the Nuuly. So for those who have not used Nuuly, you get 6 pieces once a month, and it comes in one very eye-catching patterned package, which you see it. Once you see it on your feed, you don't stop seeing it. Did you think about the social media?
I think we thought about packaging for sure, and we knew that it was going to be one of our most distinctive brand elements. Like, we're not a brand that has hero products. We have many, many products, and our inventory goes in and out of circulation at a moment's notice. So you can't really stick, like, we can't just have one dress that people want. But the Nuuly bag is what our brand identity kind of rests on quite a bit. And honestly, it was one of the earliest things that we had to do when we started the brand. There's significant lead time on packaging, and we hired someone and we were like, hi, welcome to Nuuly. You're gonna be designing our package today. So not only was the brand identity of the bag, also how the clothes are folded in the bag was thought about, because they're kind of folded in like a Marie Kondo kind of 6 in a row, so that when you open the package, it's a very nice reveal, which does do well on social media. So that was very, very well thought out.
Makes for very aesthetic unboxings. Rachel, you've been an advocate for social media managers being taken seriously versus thought of as the intern. For the brand leaders in the room, what's the single biggest thing they are getting wrong about how they support their social teams?
This is more just top of mind right now, but I do think it is important, is I was looking at some of the brands that people say are like best in class on social, and I was counting how many of their posts were either like campaigns or like content that was supporting a campaign, partnership, like new announcement. And I'll use like McDonald's as an example. Like 70% of their feed was campaign related. And so often social managers are dropped assets at the end of a campaign. Like, here's a horizontal video for you to post. It's 10 minutes long. And so I think that the best campaigns that I see are the ones that you can tell were made with social in mind. I just wrote about Gap's new campaign, and they had a director of their campaign, and then they had a director of the making of their campaign. And I would love to see more brands let social managers in from the beginning, concepting of campaigns, let them go to the shoot BTS, really build campaigns with them with a seat at the table.
Yeah. Gabby, you've gone from D to C to 11,000 retail stores, is that?
Yeah.
How have you had to kind of rethink your social strategy as you guys have gone so mainstream?
Yeah. Short answer to that is we haven't really, but the reason why we haven't is because the strategy from the very beginning was never about pushing sales on social. We see it as an awareness channel strictly. We want it to be where you discover the brand, you learn about the brand, you want to talk about the brand. Those are the goals, really. And so I think that's, of course, the brand has gotten bigger. We have more resources now than we did at the very beginning. But yeah, I think it's just it's been so great because as we've grown, we've maintained, I think, the strategy. It will always be about reach. It will never be, link in bio to not Rachel's link in bio, but every post link in bio to shop, or the product in this video is Drizzle and you can shop it at Whole Foods Market. And I think normally social managers have to really, I think, fight for that and to almost educate on that. But it's been really great because I think leadership and everybody at Graza, I think, really understands that that's not our primary goal. So we can continue leaning into that as we grow.
I mean, you guys are still very much a scrappy startup compared to someone like, it's pronounced URBN, right? Urban Outfitters parent company, which Nuuly sits under. So how much does the corporate sort of overlords impact what you guys do? Or do you kind of have your own strategy and you can do what you want? Because you guys are scrappy in your own way.
We do a little bit operate like a startup within or people say urban and URBN. I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth. So I think we're lucky that we are. So Urban Outfitters was founded, I might have this wrong, but around 55 years ago. The founder is still the CEO. So there is a very much an entrepreneurial vibe in the company. It's one of I've been at the company for 15 years and been able to do so many cool, unique things. But I think there's a value for entrepreneurial spirit. There's also a huge value for creativity. We do our creative almost exclusively in-house, and you can feel the vibes if you come to our campus. So Nuuly, all of the brands operate really independently, and any kind of cross-brand relationships are completely just networking, like nothing top down. But Nuuly was given the license to have its own tech team, and also we had to build a lot of the logistics infrastructure in a different way because it's rental and it's reverse logistics primarily, and we are a huge laundry dry cleaning facility. I think we did over 1 million repairs last year, so it's just a very unique business, and Urban invested in us from day one. It's a very capital intensive business, and they went all in. Like, I think if we had tried to launch rental the way a lot of legacy companies did, it felt I saw a lot of companies do it in that it felt like a strategy team's like project, where they were just going to test it, and the reality is you can't test it. If we had tried to test what we did, it would have failed. You had to say this is what the consumer wants. This we know our customer, and we know she will love this. Let's go all in and make a huge investment, and that's what they did. So I'm very grateful for that.
And it's paid off for them.
Yes, we're profitable. Yes, so it has.
So this is a question for everyone. A brand not your own whose social media presence you genuinely admire. Who wants to start?
I can start. I think that Merit has really, really been killing it on social, the beauty brand. I think, and you just did an interview with Merit, but before I read that, I was just like, this is just so crazy. It's almost like everything that they do, they are thinking about social first. Every campaign that they do, every product they launch, even that it feels that way, which is so rare. That's not typically how it works. I think, like Rachel said, normally you feel like you're given a campaign at the end of it and you're like, hey, just post this. I think Merit just struck me as, I was like, I'm so curious how they do this. And then come to find out the CMO was started in social. And so I think that was really, I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. But I think they're just killing it in terms of leading with social, which I think is the way forward for marketing teams.
I'm going to shout out a brand we actually work with that falls on, we buy their product and run it under our umbrella, and that's Fashion Brand Company. If you do not know them, I really suggest following them on social. they also have a little bit of chaotic energy, but they make these, they make really compelling, kind of wild content. They often partner with Joe Kappa, and we actually partnered with them for a really wild holiday video that went a bit viral and raised some eyebrows internally, but also was totally great. And we were so happy with it. But yeah, they do an incredible job on social and really believe in creativity and artists.
I wrote about that video, and it was for the trend report that I published, and it was the trend was like AI could never, and that video is AI could never. Like whatever brain came up with that video needs to be studied. A brand that I admire is Craig Hill. They are a small design company in New York that is like maybe 15 people, and they are getting views that most Fortune 500s would be jealous of. And they have just committed to telling a story on social and creating content around their products that is interesting to anyone who's just like, how do things get made? And they've turned their product into a show, essentially, and it's changed their business, and I admire that a lot, of just how deeply they have invested in social.
So much has been made about the TikTok algorithm, platform changes. If you guys were to post on only one platform forever for your brands, what would you choose and why?
Maybe this is a little bit idealistic, and I don't know, I don't know if we really could commit to this, but where I would like to post would be Pinterest. Pinterest is having a moment and also really performing for us. I think it is a happy place. There's a lot of optimism in Pinterest, and I think people need that right now. But it also converts. So we've been really happy with Pinterest.
I love Pinterest. I would have to say TikTok. It's so fun. Like, it's fun for me personally. It's most fun, I think, to be on a branded channel and sharing content there. It just feels like there's less rules, and I love the kind of anything can happen. It's the same on Instagram, but more TikTok. I think when you put something out, it's so entertaining going through the comments, and yeah, I think we at least are less precious on TikTok, and that's always very fun.
If I was advising a brand, it would probably be Instagram.
3 different answers. I love that. And why is that?
I feel, well, there's a bit of uncertainty with TikTok, I would say, with the new ownership. And so I just think that Instagram, not that it's much better, is a little bit more of a stable choice. And I think that they are making tweaks to their algorithm, for better or worse, that will surface your content as a brand more.
Are there any up-and-coming platforms that you guys are eyeing, or not so much? I feel like there were a lot there for a while, and then...
No, but I'm curious, and I don't know if I'm curious what your thoughts are about Threads currently.
Officially or off the record?
Just because you said Instagram.
I think that Threads is a closed ecosystem, and that if your brand or company has fandom, so if you're in the movie industry or sports, I think that those fandoms can thrive there. I find a lot of sort of like consumer brands, it's like talking to yourself a little bit. Even if the engagement's good, it's like not breaking out of Threads.
Or to other brands. That's what it seems like, yeah.
Okay, for the last 15 minutes, we have a bunch of questions from the audience, and feel free to continue submitting your questions. From Raquel, we have, when internet culture moves this fast, how do social teams stay culturally fluent without chasing every trend? That's a great question.
I would say absolutely don't chase every trend, and make sure that your teams are all on the same page about that. I'd say that in order to chase a trend, it has to be one that you feel that your brand has a differentiated perspective on. I think that there was a time where everyone was chasing every trend, and now it almost feels dated to chase every trend. So yeah, there might be specific use cases where I'd say go for it, but otherwise just don't do it.
This next question kind of builds off of that. This is from Melissa. How do you tell the difference between a viral moment worth amplifying versus one that could damage brand trust?
I feel like you kind of know it in your gut a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, like the pets, I'm going to go back to PetSmart. Like, that is, if you are really cautious about your brand, you could be like, well, people don't understand like how to say our like brand name and our logo is confusing to people. We shouldn't like further that. But the conversation's already started, and I think you do need to understand like the conversation started. You can either answer it or not. But I do think for controversial things, you kind of know.
I think that brings up a really good point, which is how much in social you have to rely on your gut. Like there's not a rule book, and there's, reading books, and, it can only get you so far. I think there is just a part of the job that you have to just ask yourself, like, does this feel like a good idea?
Yeah, and sometimes you need to not respond, and that's okay. And you might be getting pressure from many people in the company that you should, but you have to say, just give this a minute and see what happens. And sometimes that means do nothing.
Because things move so quickly,
Exactly.
and people forget very
Yep.
often. Yeah. Peter wonders, are, quote, accidental viral moments now just another marketing tactic in disguise?
Could be. I think that there are brands who are manufacturing moments. I saw like a influencer brand being teased by some anonymous account zooming in on her having a conversation, and there was something on the table. And I've seen brands pay sort of the talking head, like gossip accounts to, is this what we think it is? It's a little bit hard when there's the paid partnership label on it. But I think that there are ways that brands could start sort of a rogue account or do something that manufactures this. I think you should have a very good team in place if that's your plan, because it could maybe backfire.
I love this question from Katie. What advice do you have for mega brands that struggle to match the freak of social audiences because execs don't get the jokes?
I would just say that one of the most embarrassing parts of working in social is needing to translate this into a deck of like, so here's what's happening. Someone shit their pants.
Yes.
Or not shit their pants.
This is PTSD
Someone's
for me.
fat and shit. And you need to like be able to be the one that knows how to respond to it in the really like fluent online way. And you also need to be the one who can like confidently explain it to your boss, and also not feel like you're saying something stupid, because I feel like I've like downplayed my ability to come up with a good plan by just being like, no, it's like stupid, you wouldn't, like, it's fine. And so I think like saying confidently, like, no, you don't understand, like, this is what we need to do, we need to use this trending sound, or we need to like use this meme format, like, it's gonna make sense, trust me. And like, that's gonna sell your idea through way more than like, I don't know, like, it's kind of stupid, but like.
Yeah, I also think that having just a general strategy that you're, presenting and that you're talking about, where you're maybe really making a case for why this needs to be done, is really helpful. Like you saying, maybe you don't know what you're reacting to yet, but we want to be able to react to these trends. We want this to be a part of the social strategy, and here's why, and here are some brands that do it really well. And I can show you this example and this example and this example. I think that actually goes a very long way with people, because it is, some things are crazy to explain. And I think if you can get people to buy into a strategy, it's easier than just these one-off moments that you're really trying to, convince people to let you kind of play into. It's hard. This is difficult, I will say. It's not easy.
Agree. I think your point, if you have the ability to talk to your boss or your executives, and at a time where it's not a viral moment, and say, here's what I propose our guardrails are, and if we operate within these, will you trust us? And if you can kind of build that credibility that you still do have rules and guardrails, but then you have a license to operate and operate quickly within that, I think it could work well.
What lessons do you have from brand social reactions that have gone wrong? No lessons.
I think this
You've
goes
never
back
gone
to
wrong.
like trusting your gut. Sometimes I'm like, I can't believe like they posted that. Like they felt good about trying it, but Yeah, and I also think it depends on gone wrong here. Like, did this completely, like, are you losing all of your followers and is this terrible and it's crisis PR? But gone wrong can also mean that, like, it just didn't really work or it fell flat. And again, I think that, like, if you feel good about it, it's okay to go for it, and maybe it does go wrong and you learn from it, and that's okay. I think we can also be very precious and scared to, it's a lot of pressure to be running a social account. Yeah, it's a good question.
I feel like I've seen brands get defensive, and nobody likes a defensive brand. And so before you're defensive or rude or mean, taking a step back and saying, like, we're a brand posting and this probably isn't going to look good if we respond with that tone.
So true. Is there any emotion more powerful than humor when it comes to creating viral content?
I don't think so.
I mean, I personally really love humor, but I think of what I'm seeing, and you've written about this a bit, which is just like really leaning into just like emotion, even if it's like very raw. Maybe it's kind of sad, maybe it's like very honest. I'm trying to think of an example, but I'm seeing a lot of that right now. It's just people, there's nothing like funny about it, but it's just very real. And yeah, I think people also really appreciate that.
Vulnerability,
yeah.
I wrote about, like I called it like Mr. Rogers marketing, and just sort of like feel good content. And, you know, I've seen some examples where like a stadium will like be walking around with a ticket and like giving this to the like first person who takes it, and then they're showing that they're like so emotional to get to go on the field for the first time or whatever it might be. And I think something I've been thinking a lot about is like making someone's day like is scalable on social. And so as your brand, can you make someone's day, and not for the sake of going viral, of course, but like spreading joy, I think is in this climate like very necessary, and a way for also people to feel good about your brand.
Someone should clip that for your social media. That was very
Like
good. When a brand becomes the meme, how do you keep the conversation authentic instead of sounding corporate?
I think the way that you had the social manager be the voice, I think about like the McDonald's video, which is the corporate, and how the social team kind of came up with a response that was clearly from them and not him. And so you can sort of use like a team member maybe as a way to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
Are there engagement metrics that quietly signal a trend is losing energy before people notice? Or are any programs that help you keep tabs on that?
No, but I think you know, if you're following, and this is why I think it's also important, not just for social managers, but we have like Slack channels for inspo, and we have group chats going, and we're always sending things, and it's good to, sometimes somebody will see it late and say like, you know, we should jump on this, and we're like, this is kind of old, that's been around for a really long time. It's good to have, you know, we all have different algorithms, we all see things at different times. But this is kind of just like knowing, like, if there isn't, unfortunately, engagement metrics that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I have a lot of analytics in my background, but this is an area where you kind of just, you feel it dying, and you are looking at the likes number or the views, like you're looking at these things, all of these things together, and you're like, I can kind of tell it's downtrending, we should sit this one out. But yeah, it's a little bit of a combo data vibes.
Autumn wonders, I feel like we touched on this a bit, but if you guys have anything to add to this, with social rewarding more chaotic content, how do you navigate working with brands who are wary to take risks? I'm sure you've experienced this, Rachel.
I mean, again, I feel like it comes back to who is your brand? Do you know your brand? And if chaos isn't a part of your brand, then don't participate in that. You know, as much as we can talk about trends and how important it is or whatever it might be, like, no one remembers when your brand sits out of something. So if you're not comfortable doing something, sit out. No one's gonna be like, why didn't they participate? Like, it's okay.
What do you think about Apple getting chaotic on Main?
I think that it reached their perfect audience. It was like, who's the Gen Z running? It's like, they're trying to reach you with this computer, so good job.
Yeah. Their new, cheaper model, yeah. Is the lifespan of trends actually getting shorter, do you guys think, or are we just seeing the cycle more clearly?
There's just more trends, and there's trends based on your algorithm, and there's mini trends within the trends, and so I think there's just more of them, but I don't think it's can be shorter, but I've seen brands participate in a trend like a week later, but they twisted it in this like really clever way, and then you're like, oh, that was genius. And so it's not even about like getting to a trend late, it's about like, can you twist it or subvert it in some way that like feels totally like, how did they think of that? And so it's less to me about like timing and more like, do we have a way in that's really clever or interesting?
This question is actually something I intended to ask you guys earlier, but they've thrown it on here. How are you balancing your regular content calendar with trending content opportunities? How do you think about reactive versus, planned?
Yeah, for us, I mean, it really is, everything is planned. Even reactive content is planned. And that for us looks like kind of how I mentioned, making sure that we have space every month and that we've set up systems like brainstorms and Slack channels and to constantly be preparing ourselves to react to things. Sometimes all of Oil Girl or something similar will fall on your lap, but that rarely happens. Like, it does take effort to react to things and to make sure that you're seeing everything, and that like, again, it doesn't have to be just you. It can be your whole team sending inspo, and I think that's kind of how we tend to see it.
Yeah, I'd say social teams are nothing if not flexible, because you always need your planned content, but then you need to be prepared at any moment to do something totally different, whether that's a trend moment or something goes on in the world and your post is no longer relevant or appropriate to push live. So I think it's just built into the nature of a social media job.
What are your thoughts on brands creating mini novellas or reality shows and that it's growing popularity? Too mainstream and cringe already?
I feel like I've written a lot about this. I wouldn't even call that a trend. I think that the way that the algorithm works now is that your content, to some degree, if you want it to retain viewership, needs to have sort of like a through line of familiarity. And so if you think about some of your favorite creators, like, they kind of just do one thing really well or have a format that they do over and over and over again. Yet as brands, sometimes we are more in this sort of like, we've got our pillars and our different formats that we're doing. And so I've seen brands have a lot of success with serializing their content in some way. I think it might be easier to do for smaller brands. I've seen like a coffee shop in Minnesota get like millions of views because it's like day one of trying something for our new fall menu, day 2, day 3, and you want to tune in. You'll see this comment all the time, like, my show is on. And so as a brand, I do think about like, how do you get people to comment my show is on? It's something that I talk to clients a lot about, and like, whether that's happening on the main account or launching a new account, to have sort of that serialized content is something that's very much on my mind right now.
Yeah, I also think that it used to be a few years ago, like, you did not want to post long form content. Like, people were, the drop off rate. I'd say that, now, and I think really the what you'll see so much more of is this, and is feeling like brands are almost like creating shows. And I personally think it's really fun. I love it. I love, one of my favorite examples is InStyle does The Intern, and it's like, for me personally, so enjoyable to watch. I think there's also just a lot to learn there as a social manager.
Yeah, I think this is still at early stages and is going to continue to evolve.
The last 2 questions are pretty much the same question. I think it's important to touch on. What advice would you give to small social teams, even a team of 1, to prevent burnout of trying to be chronically online?
This is one that actually, and if you guys don't read Rachel's Substack, link in bio, it is amazing. Casey's too. But for social managers specifically, I think there is so much that you've kind of laid out that social teams can use to really advocate for themselves. One of these things for me is how often you have to post. It is so much pressure to come up with an idea every single day. And I think that really used to be the expectation. I think people are coming away from that. It's like you kind of mentioned, like people aren't saying like, Graza hasn't posted today. And that's a great thing for me to think about, is really like post when you have something to say that you actually feel like is worthy of being on somebody's feed. I think that is great because it allows you to put your time and your energy and your creative energy really into posts that really matter, instead of just like, okay, I need another one, I need another one, I need another one, which can very much lead to burnout. And I've certainly felt that before.
I would just say that there's sort of a misconception that trends are the easy route, and I find that brands that are constantly like needing to keep an eye on trends and what should we participate in today, and like that sort of mentality is actually more exhausting than thinking like, hey, we have this coffee shop or we have this design studio, what could we make that is trend agnostic, and we put it out once a week and it sort of becomes how we show up on social media. And so I would challenge any brand that's like feeling stressed about finding their cultural moments or participating in trends, and just saying, what show could we make? Could our office be a set? You know, I think even just a brainstorm that explores that is worth it, because I've personally found myself exhausted trying to keep up with every trend.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you all for
Thank
coming.
you.